states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. We will now pass the basket. This is a weekly literature and step meeting. Our format is as follows. A speaker is asked to speak for no more than 30 minutes. He or she spends 15 minutes on qualifying themselves and 15 minutes on either the step or a composition from the big book. Followed by shares, discussions, or questions, and we close at 7 p.m. It'll end with either the Lord's Prayer or the Serenity Prayer, whatever our speaker chooses. You can find our past weekly meetings on the YouTube page called Stay Alive Literature and Step Group Meeting. You can also find information about our upcoming meetings and other great stuff on the Doylestown Recovery Group. Do not forget to smash the like button and subscribe. This brings us to the speaker portion of the meeting on this day of Monday, October the 6th. In Doylestown, PA, Monday night, Stay Alive Literature and Step Group meeting at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Alyssa, and she is sharing on step 11.
Hi, I'm Alyssa. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Alyssa.
Whew! This never gets easier. I try not to think about what I'm gonna say because it doesn't feel like it comes out like authentic if I try planning, like even in a meeting. If I'm sitting in a meeting and I'm like not paying attention to like what's going on in the meeting and I'm thinking about what I'm gonna say, like it just doesn't feel authentic to me. So I was just like not thinking about this at all until maybe like 20 minutes before, and then I was starting to get a little anxious. But I think it's just still scary to share myself with other people in fear of being judged, fear of will you take it and share it some way, you know what I mean, just fear, which is like I was riddled with fear my whole life. I still experience fear today, however, like I have a solution to help rid me of it. But I like to put that out there, so it helps me just feel a little bit more comfortable to like share that like humanness with you. But I guess I'll qualify myself a little bit, talk about like, you know, to qualify myself. Anyway, so my sobriety date is May 26, 2014. I have a sponsor, her name is Meredith. I have a home group, it is Hartsville Courtyard. I hold a position there, and I also get the privilege and honor to sponsor other women in the program today, which is like taking my sobriety to like the next level. Being able to sponsor people. But anyway, I feel like it doesn't matter where you came from. Like I used to think that if you had the life that I lived and you experienced what I experienced, then you would drink the way that I drank, right? I thought that that was what made me an alcoholic. Turns out it's just what happens when I pick up a drink, and what happens when I try to stop drinking is like I pick up a drink, I can't stop drinking, but if I stop for a little bit, I can't stay stopped, right? And I didn't understand that until I came into the rooms here and like got a sponsor and got educated, right? But before that, right, like everyone comes from all walks of life, some trauma, some no trauma, right? Like I had a lot of dysfunction, definitely some trauma, but like not why I'm an alcoholic, but it definitely created a lot of survival skills. I had a lot of emotions, lots of walking on eggshells, lots of fear, lots of anxiety, just like this little person just feeling like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders, right? And I didn't know how to relate to people and like connect with people because I always felt somewhat like I just didn't get it. Like everybody else kind of had it figured out and I didn't. Like there was something inherently wrong with me. You know, there's alcoholism in my family. My father's an alcoholic, my sister's an alcoholic, my uncle, my aunt, like we're riddled with alcoholism. And most of them are still out there. It's their journey. I think it's been such a struggle. Like I work in treatment and like it feels a little bit, when it's closer to home, a little bit harder because I think I know what's best. My whole life I thought I had to figure it all out. I had to, like, I was in survival mode. I was Miss Independent, but I was really just running on like surviving. And right, and when I found a drink, it did something for me until it did something to me, right? Like, and from the jump, it took me, right? And I was young when I first started drinking. I was young when I got sober. I started drinking at 15. I came into AA around 2021, and I got sober at 23. So my drinking career is really short. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're drinking for freaking 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Like, it doesn't matter, right? It's like what happens when we drink, how we feel when we drink, the chaos and destruction that it causes. But yeah, and like I was young, so you can't really get it all the time. I wasn't a daily drinker from the jump, but like eventually, like my drinking went from like fun and like social to like isolation and suicidal, right? I couldn't live with a drink, I couldn't live without a drink, and it wasn't until I came into AA that like people showed me how to live a life without picking up a drink one day at a time. I want to say, that's just a little bit of a background, right? I want to talk more so on less of like the problem, right? And like, but more of like the solution, because, it's changed my life, right? This program has changed my life in so many ways that I can't even like give enough back, right? And it's no coincidence that I'm in my 11th year, right, of sobriety, and then I'm speaking on the 11th step, and it's something that like I grew up Catholic. I did what I was supposed to do. It was more of a punishing thing. So when I came into AA, and like it says God everywhere, I was just instantly closed off, right? Like AA was like the last place I came, right? Because I tried to control, figure it out, like it talks in the big book, like only do this, only drink here, only drink this type of alcohol, only do this, only drink only drink at night, not in the morning, only a couple drinks, But like if I'm controlling it, I'm not having fun. I'm not having a good time. It's not working for me. So when I came in and I heard God, right, it's the last place I came, first thing that worked, but I was very closed-minded, right? And the three things that it requires of you in this program, I think, at least for me to be successful, it required open-mindedness, willingness, and honesty. And I had honesty pretty much down, right? Like I finally had like admitted like I had a problem. I needed help, I was willing to go to any length, but my mind was a little closed off, or a lot closed off, because I was like, okay, now I'm here, but God, like, is that the only option, right? Because they're like, you can either keep on going to like the dire end, or you can pick up a spiritual toolkit. And I was like, well, I don't want either of those. So what's the in between? Like, maybe you'll teach me how to drink successfully, right? 11 is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us to power to carry that out, right? And it talks about improving, right? So like at this point, when you get to 11, like you're just improving on something that you've already developed, right? So I come in here with nothing, no real beliefs, but a little bit of like prejudice against something, right? But I'm willing, and I'm honest, which is like enough to move forward with something, right? And I've had my fair share of sponsors, whether it was like relapse or like they were too controlling or whatever it is, whatever I didn't think was working at the time. Like I went through so I've heard people get like one sponsor their whole life, but that wasn't my story. Like I've had my share, and like each one served its purpose, right? But like my first one introduced me to the 12 steps, right? And I kind of like had down, I want to say, that my life was unmanageable, but I couldn't grasp the powerlessness, right? Because I mentioned before I came into AA around like 21, but I didn't get sober till 23, right? I was kind of dilly-dallying around, right? I was willing, I was honest, but I wasn't open-minded, and I still thought that maybe I could figure it out, right? I hadn't like succumbed to my innermost self that like I was powerless over a drink. And I didn't realize that like I had to change everything about my life. Like the people I hung out with, the places that I went to, like everything that I did. Like even my job, if it took having to leave a job, right? I had to do it. Because I was still hanging in bars, I was still hanging out with the same people that were drinking, I was still behaving and acting a certain way, right? Because like I was introduced to the steps, but I hadn't done any work yet. I I got in a relationship. They say not to do that. It's probably the worst decision ever. But I, you know, like they say, like at least if you're gonna do something, right, and something it doesn't work out, like at least like take from it and learn from it, right, and like don't repeat the mistakes. So that's what I try to do, right, and like every mistake that I've made, right, the only thing I didn't do was pick up a drink for a while, right. But I made a lot of mistakes. But I got in a relationship. I hung out with the same people. I was hanging in bars, doing all the same stuff, and you know, inevitably I would pick up a drink until like stuff hit the fan, and it threw me into another level of desperation, willingness, honesty with myself that like I think I really am licked, right? Like I really am powerless over this thing. And I need to be a little bit more open-minded, right? And I think the open-mindedness came with like proper and like really good sponsorship, because like they explained to me, like I know it says God everywhere, but like when I was going through, when I finally did get sober and got a sponsor, we changed the word God in the book to like higher power or whatever I needed to do to get through whatever, because it says like of your understanding, right? A God of your understanding. So whatever I had to do to get down with it, to move forward, to get sober and stay sober, I was willing to do. For a little while, it was my sponsor's higher power. She said, like, do you believe that I believe? I said, yeah, like, here's a woman who shared her experience, strength and hope with me, and she's living a different life. And, like, I could get down with that. It works for her. I see it's working for her, but I don't know if it'll work for me. But, like, it was a little bit of open-mindedness that, like, opened the door for me to move forward. You know, and, like, how do I turn over something that, like, I don't even comprehend, right, when you get to 3? She, like, the one sponsor I had, like, had me physically, like, make a prayer, like, God box sometimes, and, like, I would put physically the thing, like, I'd write it down, and I would, like, physically put it in, and then, like, continue to physically put it in, because I needed something to, like, hold on to, because I couldn't comprehend how to turn something over to something that I don't understand, that I can't see, that I can't touch. So that, like, helped me for a little while. You know, and 4, right? Like, at all, like, as I go through the steps as, like, I talk about my story, because, like, each part is, like, a little bit of, like, growth and evolution in my connection, like, with a higher power, right? Like, coming to believe that I wanted to be restored to sanity, and just knowing that, like, it's just not me anymore, because I thought my whole life that it was me. I was in control. I'm going to figure it out. But, like, that's my problem, right? I am my problem. Drinking's my solution. So, like, 4 comes, right? And you're like, okay, now you're going to write this, like, moral inventory. And you're like, fearlessly. I'm riddled with fear. Like, I couldn't, in my addiction and sober, before I had a solution, I shook. I couldn't go anywhere without, like, a drink, right? And then sober, I'm like, I definitely can't do this fearlessly. I don't know how you want me to do that. So they're like, okay, well, like, pray. Ask for it to be removed. I'm like, but I don't believe it's going to work. And like, do it anyway. Do it in disbelief and keep doing it, right? So, like, that willingness. I just always had that willingness. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. You say jump, I'll say how high. I don't believe it, but they said do it in disbelief. And you move the body, the mind will follow. And I was like, okay. Like, and I really trusted in that sponsor, right? And I had something called, like, a spiritual experience, like one of many, right? The first spiritual experience was getting introduced to AA, right? The second one was coming to understand that, like, I am fully powerless, right, over this thing that I have no control over, right? Understanding that I'm insane and that I need to turn it over, right? Like, I can't, God can, I'll let him. And then, like, I have this, like, experience where, like, I'm always like, it was you, it was you, it was you, it's never me, right? Like, how dare you, like, in self-pity, just, like, selfish, self-centered, self-pity, like, how dare you do this to me? Like, my life is so terrible, right? Like, yeah, crappy things happen, but I also played a part, right? And for the things that, like, happened if I was younger, that, like, was out of my control as a child, right? There's a lot of things that are out of my control, and I did not play a part. However, I did fuel my addiction and continue to drink at it, right? So that's my part. But I had this like shift, right? Like my sponsor, I call my sponsor for perspective, right? But I had my first spiritual perspective change when I did a fourth step, right? And I'm like, as we're going through, I'm developing some sort of relationship with something because I'm still sober and I couldn't get sober for a really long time and I'm staying sober, so something is happening. I'm building some sort of connection because in how it works, it talks about we're powerless, right? What does it say? God could and would if he were sought. Like, we cannot manage without whatever. I can't even quote anything. But, so I had my first like real heavy spiritual experience where like I'm finally seeing people kind of like just as I am, like for human, like their humanness, and that like they did the best they could with what they had. And I had so much anger and so much resentment and so much fear and so many expectations, right? And expectations have been coming up for me recently, and I'll tie this all together at some point shortly. But expectations are huge. They always lead to resentments for me. Like if everybody would just act and do and say and be, it would be great. But that's just not how it works. And then I go through and I share with another alcoholic who, instead of being shocked about what I share with her, she goes, me too, right? That's not so bad. Thanks for sharing with me. Thanks for trusting me. And I'm like, whew, all right, we're good. Let's move on, right? And then I find out I have these things that are like my makeup, right? These negative, there's like assets and liabilities, right? They call them like, we have defects. And like, we can turn them into a positive, right? Like the opposite of my defects could be like positives, right? Like if I'm like, for example, like, I don't even know, like impatient, right? I'm going to ask for patience, right? However, be careful what you ask for because I've always gotten a situation to allow me to practice patience, right? And the only way that I'm able to do that is through a loving higher power to help me to take away, right, that impatience and replace it with some sort of patience and understanding and acceptance of that, right? And then like 7 is humbly asking him to remove these defects that I'm becoming aware of and that that aren't serving me anymore, right? Because I'm growing, I'm evolving, I'm developing a relationship with something else that like is going to save my life. And because no human power will, right? People are great. I can rely on people, but at the end of the day, all I'm going to have is that connection that's going to keep me from picking up. And so it's really important to develop it, but it's okay if you don't have it too, because it can come. That's all right. But then there comes like the amends process, right? And making the list and righting your wrongs and not just saying sorry, but like really changing your behaviors, right? Like my sponsor wouldn't let me make any amends until I was actually like changing my behaviors and stopped doing certain things so that I didn't have to keep saying and like apologizing. Bless you. And that in itself was another spiritual experience, another experience to really just like build my repertoire and build my rapport with my higher power. Like the whole way through these steps so far, like God's carried me through. And I call it God, I call it higher power, I call it love, I call it connection. It depends on what day it is. It's whatever in the day, right? It's always different as long as I'm seeking it. And then 10, like at this point, we're so, at least for me, I'm like aware now, right? Like I've had this like awakening, I've had a perspective change. I see how I interact with others, how I gossip, how I'm short, I put up walls, I'm imperfect, right? But like I'm paying attention to it throughout the day so that I can catch it right away, I can amend it, or I can like pause before I react, right? I'm no longer reactive, I am responding more at this point, right? And then we get to 11, but I've kind of been practicing 11 all along, right? Because I'm seeking through prayer and meditation for me is sitting in quiet, sitting with self, which I hated probably for the first 10 years, right? I talk about that because I am a human doing. I have a hard time being a human being. which means I stay busy. I like to be busy. I like to keep going, right? I like to help people. I like to do this. I have hobbies. I have a side hustle. I love my meetings. I love being in service. I have a full life. But sometimes I need to stop and smell the roses and slow down. And I think for a really long time, I was avoiding certain things, right? However, in this past year of sobriety, I've been really tapping into 11, right? Like sitting in quiet. Like I don't even, when I go home to work, home from work, to the store, no music. It's really bizarre, but like it's like for me, I'm so connected. I'm just sitting with myself, which is something that I avoided my whole life, whether it's listening to music or calling somebody on the way to somewhere or texting and driving, which is so dangerous, or like, you know what I mean, like future tripping and doing all that stuff. I'm just sitting and listening, right? 11 is like, prayer is like, what do they say, talking to God, and 11 is listening, right? I've been really tuning into listening, right? And 4 minutes. Okay.
No, you can know you're good.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm almost done.
No, you're good.
It's hard to like talk about both, but with like 11, you know what I mean? Like this past year has been probably, I want to say, the hardest, most painful, most rewarding, most beautiful, happiest year of my life. With that being said, right? Like I always like preface like sobriety is like, just because you get sober doesn't mean you're going to be happy all the time. It doesn't mean like stuff's not going to happen. It's going to be painful, but it's going to be all the in-betweens, right? There's going to be really good moments, there's going to be really bad moments, and then everything in between. And the only reason that I've been able to not pick up a drink, I believe, is because of my super deep connection with my higher power. And like the reason I chose my most recent sponsor, which I've been with for 3 years, because my last sponsor was a little crazy. So I got a new sponsor. And she brings me to God. And she attracted me because she's always talking about God and her connection with God and telling me to pray. And like the first thing she'll tell me to do is pray. It's like, okay, call me back after you pray, right? Like don't come to me first. I want you to be God reliant, not sponsor reliant. And that's not what I want to hear, but it's what I need to hear. And like, I don't know if I hadn't been seeking this connection over the past year, I don't think I would have been able to. I don't think I'd be where I am right now, right? I was able to walk through some really difficult things, like even making decisions that were like probably the best decisions for myself and my sobriety, but still painful, right? Because I hurt people unintentionally. But like, I'd say one of the biggest things is I spent the majority of my sobriety with one person, right? The wrong person. Great person. But not my person, right? So I got married in sobriety, I got divorced in sobriety, right? And it was very, very challenging, right? I had to start my life over, right? I had to build from the ground up. And I couldn't have done that without a higher power and my network, you know what I mean? And my sponsor and all of this stuff. But like, you know, the most recent has been like I don't know if you've ever heard, you probably have heard the saying, because nothing's like original, it's all repeat. But like God doesn't give you anything that you can't handle, right? So like just recently I'm going through a lot of emotional turmoil, right? I just did like an emergency 4th and 5th step yesterday with my sponsor. I went to her house. I was just like emotionally like distraught, resentful, expectations glaring, right? Like I'm not freaking perfect, right? Like I don't put on that I'm perfect at all. But I was in a lot of pain over the past 72 hours. And I felt the presence of my higher power. I talked to my higher power. Like all I did was just like ask for whatever to be removed and like to ask for comfort, right? And I got it. And I've been presented through my higher power, like, and God, like, new things that I'm able to like now face, right? To work through, right? Like I'm always evolving. My relationship with God's always evolving, and my sobriety is always evolving. And new things are always going to pop up. Like I never want to stop growing, right? I don't want to get stagnant. There's always something to work on, something to grieve. Like right now I'm going through grief and loss and pain and sadness and happiness. Like these emotions are all coexisting at once, and it's like overwhelming, right? But I have tools, one being the most important, which is like prayer and meditation. And if you don't believe it, that's okay. Because I was a skeptic. I was way against it, but it has literally saved my life. AA saved my life. And then working with others saves my life, right? When all else fails, working with another alcoholic can save the day. And that in itself is like a form of like connecting with a higher power, to see another person get it, and not everybody gets it. But like planting a seed, maybe, because my responsibility as a sponsor is not to get someone sober, keep them sober. It is to put their hand in God and take them exactly as I was taken through the steps. That's it. I'm not there to control them. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a relationship coach. I'm not a life coach. I'm just another alcoholic who wanted to stop drinking and didn't know how, and developed got way more than I ever could have imagined out of this. So I hope that made sense and tied into 11 somehow. So
Good.
Cool.
All right. Thank
That's
you.
it.
I meant to say this before I introduced you. I've had the privilege of running into this young lady on Thursday night big book study meetings, and you've been offering stuff. You may not even know what you said, but you made a lot of sense to me. That's what compelled me to reach out to her and want her to come in. And I know that you have a lot of people from, I call it your posse, that's here. So you got somebody really special here that's in your lives, and really take an opportunity to grow with her and be with her. So let me just read something real quick, and then we can share. So we have come to the part of the meeting where we are going to open up the floor for shares, discussions, and questions. Try to limit your share to 3 minutes. Please try and keep your conversation to the literature and steps shared by Alyssa. If you feel like drinking, or if you had a drink today, please see me or someone speak to me after the meeting. So I'm going to start with that young lady back there.
Hi, I'm Danielle.
Hey, Danielle.